We also decided very early on, we are not making an HD version of the art style of the original. That's not our goal.
Yeah, Gothic Remake walks this fine line between being realistic and believable, and also at the same time having this dark fantasy themed inside. No? It should feel believable and realistic in terms of textures and colors and the details on the characters and the cloth and on the rocks and everything. Those opposite forces, and one is leaning more than naturalistic, believable, realistic world, and the other one is leaning designs of creatures and environments and everything to a more fantastical and dark, grim world. It's a real world, it tries to be a real medieval simulation, I would say, but with a twist of dark magic and weird stuff happening.
We looked at it from the perspective of the full spectrum of Gothic games done by Piranha Bytes, because these are the canon Gothic games, and these are the ones we need to look at. And I also feel like these are the ones that the fan base liked the most. Like if you look at like a scavenger in Gothic 3, he looks very different than in Gothic 1. In an ideal world, we create an art style that is kind of like not just for one game, but for an entire new series within like the Gothic franchise. So we had like the classic Gothic games. We wanted to make it a realistic art style, so it should not be something that should feel like a fantasy game.
Sobre todo porque tuvimos que reinterpretar cómo estaba hecho el original y cómo trasladarlo a algo que fuera verosímil y que fuera algo realista. Y al final nos costó mucho encontrar como que el estilo de que queríamos orientar, por ejemplo, las construcciones, cómo iban a ser las casas, cómo iban a ser los puentes colgantes. Entonces, encontrar el estilo nos costó bastante. Una vez que ya lo encontramos, ya fue todo hacia esa dirección, pero hasta que llegamos ahí fue bastante complicado.
Lo más difícil yo creo que ha sido adaptar las ideas originales de los diseños originales, del gótico original, y llevarlos a algo un poco más verosímil, un poco más realista, pero no real, sino simplemente verosímil, y también aportar algo nuestro. Y yo creo que convertir esa idea original en algo de ahora, algo más moderno, pero nuestro también, ha sido lo más complicado.
Even like back then in 2001 and 2002, when Gothic 1 and 2 came out, they were not considered as like new references in terms of graphics. I mean, they had certain things that were really cool and unique, but like nothing that was like, wow, this is like the new benchmark. When I look at the art style of the original from a now perspective, from Gothic 1 especially, you look at the look that is like, it's very distinct, but it's like also a child of its time. I mean, it has this low poly look somehow, and it uses, in order to emphasize certain character elements and parts of a model, they use specific techniques. Like, it's not a comical art style, but like it's something that also is used in the comical world, because also they have like, the panels are only so small, so in order to get a certain emphasis on a specific visual element, you need to make it like unproportionally bigger. So what I want to say with that is like, when looking at the art style now, it's something very specific and very much that had to be done in that time and that technical restriction.
I think the style of the original games is fascinating and perfectly captures an era where the technical limitations force people to enhance their imagination and to come up with imaginary solutions, and actually pretty smart solutions. However, as an artist, I think that the fact that most interest awakes in me, it's how they progressively change the aesthetics of the game from Gothic 1 to Gothic 2 to Gothic 3. I mean, it's like from Gothic 1 to Gothic 2, there's a clear shift in tone, in colors, and everything that the game is trying to visually convey. And at the same time, as I told you, I think that the aesthetic of the three games evolved with the time, and they started to, to take decisions to make everything more rounded and more realistic and more believable in terms of how animals should look and how environments should look and the proportions and everything. One of the most interesting parts is when you play Gothic 2 and you discover that all of this dark aesthetic just disappears as the barrier disappears, and now the game outside the colony, outside the barrier, is actually vibrant and full of life. And this changed the mood completely of the game. No? This evolution in the games, I think it's pretty smart for the age, and I think this is something that we should also try to respect at maximum.
When we talk about people and players perceive Gothic, they're like, well, what do you do? I mean, yeah, it looks nice, but it doesn't look like the original. We also decided very early on, we are not making an HD version of the art style of the original. That's not our goal. That could have been done, of course. I'm not denying that. I'm not saying which is the better one or the worst one. We wanted to create something that is appealing to both old and new fans.
Our main reference is the original Gothic, right? And this is now history of video games. It happened like more than 20 years ago. For us, this is our base camp. But from that starting point, I would say that we use the Baroque, the approach of light, color, the darkness, the aesthetic of the Baroque in all of its stages and all of its eras. I would say that from the early Baroque ages with Caravaggio, chiaroscuro, and the Spanish tenebrism of Velázquez, for example, whose dramatic contrast in interior scenes we share, to the high Baroque landscape painting of Claude Lorraine and Nicolas Poussin, and the color contrast and tonal approach of the Flemish Baroque as seen in David Tenier's second paintings. And I would say that we also draw from the late Baroque era, with bordering on maybe neoclassicism, I would say, with Hubert Robert and his view on ruins and sunsets. So yeah, definitely I would say that Baroque, in all of its stages, has been the overarching inspiration that has guided our art direction. However, you can also find strong influences from Petrus van Schendel, for example, and his highly atmospheric nocturnal scenes. And Schendel, he was more like kind of a romantic painter. In terms of colors, we try to go with the Baroque path. I mean, we will have colors, of course, but all of them, they will have some kind of desaturation with a very high contrast. And we're trying to force a little the ochre shades, so everything feels more grounded, more brownish, more greenier, more yellowish, like the original Baroque paintings. And the idea is to create this environment as believable, but it's also dramatic.
So when we started to work on the Gothic projects, after the playable teaser, I mean, one thing that was very clear, like, we need to get this more dark and gritty and depressing atmosphere. It's a prison colony after all, so it shouldn't have like this bluish, bright, overcast, lush tone. But like for Gothic 1, we needed to have it like very, with a very specific look also to convey this atmosphere. There was also some new techniques coming in, because we started the Gothic 1 remake in Unreal 4 and we converted, I guess it was after a year and a half, to Unreal 5, which brought this new light system, Lumen, in there. And Lumen works in a specific way. It's a system to do global illumination for like in real time. And it's a very powerful system, but it also brings some restrictions in order to work really well. So we had to like make actually that the global animation works. We had to make certain spots brighter than what we actually wanted it to do, and what is good maybe for the art style and the game.
All of the creatures that have been redesigned has been with the original vision in mind. So we try to make homage and try to understand what the original creators were trying to do. For example, with the scavenger, there's a typical classical creature in the world of Gothic, no? We took the original scavenger, we analyzed it, we understood what they were trying to say, what type of animal it should be, and we reinforced and we enhanced the main traits, the traits that we decided were the main traits. And people at the beginning were reacting like, okay, it's similar, but it feels different. But when they saw moving and they understood the way the creature worked and the way the creature was moving and reacting into the living world, they understood that essentially we're talking about the same creature. It's behaving like expected. And then the artistic decisions took on the shape, on the colors, and everything made sense.
We have tried to be really faithful to the original, yeah. But we always wanted, we also wanted to give something from our point of view, or our own experiences, our own tastes, and our own, I don't know, from ourselves, you know. And I think people should also have in mind that we are creatives and we want to give something from ourselves. So maybe expect some, you know, some deviations from minor things.
I think we assembled an amazing team of artists, an amazing team that sees the challenges as an opportunity to grow and to learn something and to, you know, raise the bar again and again. And for me, it was an incredible experience to come here every day to work with them. It's been an interesting challenge, and I cannot wait to the players to play our game and explore the world that we craft. And hopefully they will see, we will awake some memories of Gothic 1, and they will recognize places and environments and characters.